Hi, this is Editor's Take and you're watching this on Moneycontrol. I'm Sakshi Batra and with me is Gaurav Choudhury, is the Deputy Executive Editor of Moneycontrol, and we are here to discuss the updates from the 38th GST Council meeting that took place yesterday. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for joining in. Let me begin by asking you the big decision that was taken on lotteries, on hiking the rate on lotteries yesterday. What are your thoughts on that, and also about the process that was undertaken, the voting process to hike these rates?
So the big decision actually was that the council decided not to go for a general change in rates.
Yeah.
And there were reasons for that. We'll come to that later. But the big decision of the only decision that was probably taken. I mean, there are two or three minor ones. The major decision that was taken was to increase the rate of lottery to a standard rate of 28%.
Yeah.
Until now. And this is effective from March, the new rates. But until now, lotteries were being taxed at two different rates. GST was, there are two different rates of GST were imposed on lotteries. One, those run by the state governments, and those authorized by state governments but run by private parties, as well as interstate supply of lotteries. Those were taxed at 12 and 28% respectively. So there was a proposal before the council that you need to standardize these rates and bring it to 28%. There were what we now gather is that 21 states actually backed the proposal, and there were 7 states that did not, they were opposed to the proposal. Eventually, the finance minister did try to, hammer out a consensus and tried to ensure that so far what has been the practice of the GST Council is that every decision has been taken through a consensus.
Yeah.
And she tried to maintain that practice even in this meeting. But as she herself came out and said that while practice is not part of the rule book, she tried her best and eventually sensed the mood of the House and decided to put it to vote. So this is the first time that any decision has been put to vote.
Yes.
The rules do allow that if there is no consensus, and if there is a division among if there is disagreement on a certain proposal, then the majority decision will prevail.
Yeah.
In this and a similar process was adopted for this decision. And this is the first time. This is the 38th meeting. The first time in 38 meetings that something has been put to vote through a majority. Some decision has been taken through a majority voting. But beyond that, the council did not take any major decisions. Importantly, as I said before, there has been no decision on raising or changing rates on a vast number of goods and items and services that was expected.
Right. So the minor decisions also will come to. What were the other key decisions of, say, on the rates on the woven bags and also the industrial parks? There were some decisions taken. If you could expound upon that.
So so there are 2 other rate changes that has happened. One is on woven and non-woven bags, and a minor rate changes happened there. Likewise for industrial parks. But there is also a certain procedural decisions that and tax evasion decisions that have been taken. Say, for instance, there is now a cap on input tax credit on certain types of inputs that were to be claimed from 20% to 10%. It has been brought down. So that is the tax evasion measure again. And there is also a decision that has been taken on it's again procedural, where the council has decided to give 1 more month for filing of returns of the audited returns of the first year of GST, which is 17-18, which is again a procedural decision.
Right, absolutely. Now, apart from this, if you could just help us understand if anything with regards to the compensation to states also was discussed in yesterday's meeting.
So that has been one point of friction, which has dominated GST discussions over the last 2 months, and states claim that the compensation that is due to them has not been released. But over the last month or so, certain amount of compensation seemed to have been released. So there was some degree of discussion there on that topic. But that seems to have passed off for now because money seems to have been released by the centre and the states. But the point here is that while states are protected by a compensation in case of revenue loss for a period of 5 years, it is the states say that the centre is holding back the compensation that is due to them because there has been revenue loss, and as we know, GST is a destination-based tax. So if on every occasion that if consumption comes down, GST collections obviously will also come down, and states will have to be protected under law. They're protected for 5 years for any revenue loss based on a certain calculation that was agreed upon when GST was launched. States have been saying that that compensation, that revenue hasn't come to them and it has affected their public finances. The center has now said that they have started releasing, and a significant proportion of the due compensation has already been passed on to states.
Right. And let me now come to the big decision, as you said, was not to hike the rates or the slabs or tamper with the slabs that are existing in the GST. So if you could help us understand, why did not the government do that, and will it now not pressurize, because the whole idea was being talked about was to boost or maximize revenues or the collections from GST, which is definitely under the target right now.
Yeah, so there are two so the council had to take a very balanced view on this. One, you look at it from a public finance point of view, which the council did, and said that from a purely public finance point of view, there seems to be a case for raising rates because revenues are extremely low. The government has to compensate first the states, and it also has to meet its budgeted targets, which are far below the budgeted targets at this point in time. We know that GST collections have crossed 1.03 lakh crore last month. But if it has to maintain, if it has to retain or meet the budget or come close to the budgeted targets, then in the next 4 months from December to March, it has to hit a run rate of 1.4 lakh crore. That seems extremely challenging. So one way of doing that was to raise the rates. And that was a tempting thing to do for the council, given that revenue shortfall has been so steep. But from the other side of the fence, if a rate change is executed or announced now, it will only lead to inflation. And that it will be inflationary. It will raise prices of goods and services immediately, and that could further perpetuate the slowdown. So that could force people to spend even less. So the council, in its wisdom, decided this is not the right time to raise rates, because at no point can the deceleration or the slide be made steeper, because people will be forced to, people may be prompted to buy even less because of inflationary because higher rates could actually end up only pushing up inflation. And that is the decision that the council took in its wisdom. Even if there is a revenue shortfall, the other avenues will have to be found out. But they thought, and the council thought, members of the council thought, that this is trying to plug the revenue shortfall by raising GST rates is not a prudent move.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot then, Gaurav, for sharing all those insights over there, that the GST Council has not gone in for a GST rate hike, and that is the big decision that has really come out from the yesterday's meeting, because as was largely being expected, to just maximize or boost the revenues, the GST Council could hike rates at this point in time to just meet the targets that they had set for the GST collections. But that hasn't happened, because all the states really collectively and with consensus decided that this would not be a prudent move at this point in time. Thanks a lot for joining us in this edition of Editor's Take, and do stay logged on to moneycontrol.com for more news and updates. Thanks for watching.